I'm quite happy to be the first speaker, not just the speaker of today, but obviously this is the first time you've really had the festival. So you have nothing to compare me against, really. So basically I can't be worse than anybody else, which is kind of a good starting place. Very, very flattered to be here. It's very strange for me because I've been lucky enough to travel the world and work in many parts of the world, although this is the very first time I've come to the Gulf region. So just having been here one day, I know that I'm going to be back. I've seen enough and met enough people who've made me think there's a lot of excitement happening here, and that's why I'm so flattered to be asked to come here to talk to you today. Now, I'm a little bit of a rambler, so you're going to have to forgive me for that. As I said, hopefully you can tell from my accent that I am Australian. That accent has been compromised along the way because I've worked in many parts of the world. But to know sort of what I stand for, and I am going to show you some work and talk about what we were trying to do and what I'm trying to build with Droga 5. I'll just give you a little bit of a backstory about me, really. So I grew up in a very remote part of Australia. And this has context, by the way. This isn't just to feel good. I grew up in a very remote part of Australia. I grew up in what's called the Snowy Mountains of Australia, which is a ski resort. But in summertime, it was a destination of 20 people. So apart from hanging out with my siblings, there was really nothing else for me to do beyond use my imagination. Fortunately, my imagination is my greatest overhead and sort of the one thing that I've sort of capitalised on. So I've spent my whole time adult career, when I moved to Sydney, trying to assimilate and understand and learn from wherever I went. So even moving to Sydney from the mountains was a learning curve for me. And that's when I first got into advertising. And Australian advertising taught me that advertising can actually be fun. I mean, the fact that you're actually paid to use your imagination and the power of your imagination. Because in essence, I've never seen myself as anything more than a storyteller. And a storyteller that is grounded in commerce, because that's what advertising is about. Now that's been something that I've kept with myself throughout the years. And from Australia I moved to Singapore, where I was lucky enough to work for 2.5 years. Worked with some fantastic people. And Singapore taught me the essence that hard work in our industry, and the fact that you can work with great people from all over the world, and that it doesn't really matter where you're from. And then I was lucky enough to move to London, where I was there for 4.5 years. Running Saatchi & Saatchi, which again taught me sort of the backbone and craft of the industry, and really the craft of the industry. And then I moved, see, Australians are gypsies, by the way, you can tell I'm slowly circumnavigating the globe. Then I moved to New York about 4 years ago. And New York is a whole different kettle of fish. New York sort of taught me the business of advertising, because it's such a huge market, and to really understand the scale of it. And I don't think I would have been brave enough or ready to start my own agency had I not had the luxury of working in all those different regions of the world and working with some incredibly talented people. So finally, after some time, I sort of thought, well, maybe I have to take that jump, have to make that leap and actually try and start my own place. Because it's very easy to have principles about what you stand for when you're in the big corner office with a big title, but you don't usually implement your principles. And the only way to really test your principles is to get back to basics and do it. So I'm a huge fan of advertising. I'm one of those advertising people that actually loves advertising. It's a funny industry, advertising, because most people who are in it, particularly creative people who are in the industry, usually are aspiring to do something else. Sort of an interim thing. They're either frustrated screenwriters, frustrated artists. I'm a purebred. I love advertising. I love the power of what we do. I love the fact that it doesn't cost any more to have a great idea than it does to have an average idea. I love seeing that building brands out of our creativity really moves the needle in business. I also love the fact that we're creative with other people's money. I always think that's sort of, that's the fun part of advertising. And what struck me the most about my travels is the essence of who we are as an industry and who we are as a body of people around the world is very, very much the same. We all live by the same principles. Certainly there's different cultural nuances and religious nuances that differentiate us. But the principles of what motivates us are very similar. And that's something that I've really tried to put in my work. One of the privileges of being an Australian is we're quite simple folk. And that's something that forces us to just, keep it basic. And that's something I've always tried to apply to my work. So I'm really inspired by the emotion of creativity and the emotion of the work I create. And not for the sake of it. I think what's really important, and even the work that I admire that I had nothing to do with, there's a real connection in the work. So I always like to say that I like to think about what I want people to think and feel, particularly feel, when they've been touched by something that I've done, whether it be a print ad or a TV ad or a digital piece, but really sit down and think about what's the feeling I want them to get out of that, as opposed to what I want them to just think. Because feelings are so much more powerful. I think also one of the things that I've learned along the way is that it's not just about creativity for the sake of creativity. We work in a very precious industry, and in any other industry, you'd almost give it up if you had the success rate that we have. We spend a lot of time falling in love with our ideas and our thinking, and in essence, if I was a doctor and 8 out of 10 patients that I worked on died, I'd probably give it up. I'd probably say, well, this isn't probably the industry for me. If I was an architect or 8 out of 10 buildings I built fell down, I probably wouldn't stay in the industry. But with advertising, so much of what we create isn't bought by clients, for whatever reasons. And we always have to constantly get back up and constantly push on and try and come up with that solution. Now, so that's a little bit about who I am, and also a tiny bit more context to who I am before I get into the work is I have an identity crisis. And that might be because, I grew up in that mountain. I am Australian, but my mother is Danish, still a Danish citizen. My father's family was Polish, so I worked in Singapore, London, New York. My wife is from Puerto Rico, the Caribbean. We were married in Thailand. As my secretary said to me that day, I've got an identity crisis. It's worth noting my secretary's from China. So I got some real issues. But I think that's because I really love, I love cultures around the world. And that's been the greatest joy for me working in advertising, is being exposed to that. And at no point did I ever travel around thinking that I knew everything, or that I understand every bit of culture and all that sort of stuff. But I've really tried to embed myself and surround myself with great people that really make me understand the principles of each culture. But as I said at the beginning, I still genuinely believe, and maybe I'm naive and ignorant, but we're still fundamentally moved by the same things. So there's a lot of work that I've done over my career that I'm very proud of for different reasons. And I thought instead of just showing you work, I'd talk about some of the work and what I was trying to achieve and what we're trying to achieve. But before I leap into talking about the Droga 5 work, which is what we're doing now, and what we're trying to do, I just thought I'd remind you that I come from a traditional advertising background, because I think that's the one thing I found when I started my agency. Everyone was like, oh, you must be against traditional advertising, against press advertising, or against TV advertising, which is ridiculous. I love those mediums. But I'm just going to show you 4 examples of some TV work that I've just cherry-picked out. And they're 4 very, very different categories. And please let me indulge you with this, because I understand some of these categories are not necessarily appropriate for each market, and not necessarily appropriate for this market. Hopefully there's nothing offensive in there. But I just wanted to sort of get into the mindset of what we were trying to achieve with each one. Because as I said, I always sit and think about the psychological side of each brand, because every brand has a story to tell. And that's my main thing. And, most brand stories are quite generic. So unless they find a story to ground themselves in, then they're invisible. I always say to people in my office, if they were giving BMWs away for $20, you don't need any clever advertising. You just have a headline that says BMW is $20. But unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. Most brands actually have to say something compelling, or have to create a connection. And that's where storytellers come in. Every brand needs a story to tell, and that story can be beautiful, that story can be honest, that story can be worthy, that story can be irreverent, but as long as it's something that connects to the DNA of that brand. And as I said, it's as relevant if you're talking about cars, real estate, soda, nappies, whatever. Every brand has to make that connection. So the first thing I'm going to show you from one of my previous slides is I've just cherry-picked one ad from, they were all part of much bigger campaigns. But again, it's a very strange category to start with, but it was for the British Army. And millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars around the world were wasted on sort of recruitment advertising. And the objective of the British Army was to really create the tone and the psychological feel of, it's a challenge. You know, anybody who serves their country is making a huge commitment, but it's also something that's very tough, and it takes a lot of commitment. And a lot of advertising that's been done previously around the world with, you know, armies and navies has all been quite shallow and see the world and all that sort of stuff. And we wanted to create a real gritty campaign that was almost intimidating, too intimidating for the majority, because we wanted to cut down the number of people that actually applied for the army, but up the calibre of those that did. So we did a campaign which was all about the essence of the challenge. So this was just one of the ads that we showed. We also challenged the media as well. So it was TV campaigns, but we the first ad almost set it up, and then we let other people put their ads in between. So I'm just going to show June, if we can just show the first ad, please, for the British Army. Now, I mean, again, that's a very heavy tone, but again, it was appropriate for them. And I think that's always the most important thing, is finding what's the appropriate tone for each brand. See, for me, I don't think advertising is superficial. I don't think the consumer lives in a superficial world. You know, and one of the biggest issues I have with advertising is that advertising portrays people in a very artificial way. You know, everyone lives in this bubble and everyone looks rosy and there's no issues, there's no nothing. And for me, I've always tried to sort of do advertising that has, as I said, some emotional connection and some real truth and insight to it. And it's worth saying that, you know, everything, I'm as proud as I am of the creativity that I've been associated with, but also as proud of the strategic thinking that's gone into that, that sort of fathered that. And again, as I said, that's an extreme example, but what that did was that set a sort of tone for the British Army, with every piece of communication they did had that feel and the grit and the essence of challenge. And as I said, it was really about making it an intimidating thing, which was, you don't usually have a conversation with a client about, well, let's try and bring the amount of people we want to apply down. But as I said, the essence of the calibre of people. Changing tones drastically, I've got 4 very different tones here to make the point, is, again, the psychological, it's psychological, but it's meant to be dark humour, and it's for employment agency recruitment. And again, you know, in life, there are a few things that people stress about as much beyond their family and such than their careers. And we just thought the thing about the truth about human beings and people is we have a habit to overthink things. We really do. And when left to our own devices, we usually make a mess of it. And there's a real truth that when you overthink something, usually you give yourself the worst advice. So I'm going to show you just one of the, this was again one of a multifaceted campaign, but I'll just play the next one, please, Jim.
It's the boss. So what are you going to do? Let him score? What sort of man are you? Stand up to him. He'll respect his right. But then, he is the boss. You'll make him look stupid. You'll hold it against you. You can kiss that promotion goodbye. What the? Hey, isn't that the new kid from finance? That's what you should have done! It was a test! But wait, there's still time.
For career advice worth listening to and thousands of jobs, visit lynx.co.uk.
Thank you, June. Again, and that was just one of many TV and print and outdoor and everything, and digital for them. But again, it was establishing a premise and a tone. You know, and it's sort of, there's a real truth in it. And it wasn't just trying to create something that was funny, it was actually trying to create something that people had a connection to. And I think that's always really where it's the essence of the best work is. It's something you can relate to. You know, that's why I've always admired Nike's work for so long, because there's a real personable idea, it's grounded in something. You know, the genius of Just Do It was always, that's as relevant to a marathon runner as it is to, you know, some person who's, you know, obese and sits on his couch. And this is going to be, again, a bit heavy. Sorry, this is probably too early in the morning to show something as upsetting about this, but it's a real issue globally, but obviously in the UK when I was there. And it's for child abuse. Is obviously a terrible thing that goes on. And this was an idea where I just really wanted to, you know, unfortunately the general public are sort of immune to bad news and you know, the 5 o'clock news sort of makes us immune to things. And so the objective with this one was to try and do something that sort of rocked people out of their comfort zone and really mess with them by juxtaposing things that make you feel good with things that are not quite right, to make the point. So this was an advocate. So June, if you could just play the next one, please.
What's this? I don't know all day, have you? Hey, you've been sitting all day watching telly? Who's touched my videos? I said who's messed up my videos? Don't just sit down here and talking to me. Yeah! Start backing your ideas up, son. Hey, I'm telling you. Now what the hell are you up to? Look at the state of this place! Look at the state of it! Look at it! What did I tell you about running indoors? Hey, what did I tell you? Here you are. What are you up to? I just asked you what you're up to. You dirty fucker! Get out! Get in here before you fucking run! Get out of here!
Thank you, June. I know that's a pretty heavy commercial. I mean, such was the power of that commercial that the actor in that, who actually was beating up a cartoon child, was abused in the street when he walked down the street by enraged mothers who couldn't even disconnect, which is the insanity of you know, communication. I quickly better segue into something a little bit lighter. Category that's not really relevant here, but you know, it's huge in the US, is the beer category, which is a pretty vacuous category, really. You know, it usually portrays all men as stupid and
really sad.
I did that to sort of try and go up against, you know, as I said, all the other B-rates that try and be funny from the neck down, and we just tried to be funny from the neck up. So that's just a small smattering of stuff that I've worked on before, but which I've enjoyed, and there's many things that I've enjoyed, and I wish I could show you some of my favourite print, but there's not really a forum for that. But then I decided, you know, these are firmly grounded in the distraction model. You know, you're putting these on TV, and people are there watching their favourite TV show. You know, we're trying to get their attention between the TV show. And, you know, I'm proud of the work I've done. And as I said, I think still the best TV is relevant. You know, with all the technology changes, you know, it's still a battle between good and bad. It's not about, you know, the internet or TV versus print. You know, it's still about doing stuff that resonates. But I thought, you know, I really want to start my own place, and I want to, for the first time, be able to, instead of inheriting other people's cultures and inheriting, and by cultures I mean the agency's cultures, and inheriting staff and, you know, obviously I'd sprinkle some of my own people around that. I just really wanted to start from basics and handpick who I work with. And in typical schizophrenic type of attitude of traveller, you know, I sort of picked a lot of my favourite people I've worked with in Australia, from Asia, from the UK and the US, and set about trying to surround myself with people that have different points of view, cultural points of view, different backgrounds. And then I also tried to surround myself with storytellers from different industries. Storytellers that necessarily come from, not necessarily advertising, but are still from mass communication places. So our CEO is from the magazine world. He'd never been in advertising. You know, he was editor-in-chief of Details magazine, and Absolute, and deputy editor of The New Yorker. Our CFO had never been in advertising. He was from Citibank. You know, I hired people from Viacom, from Microsoft. You know, all these industries that we're perpetually scared of. I thought, well, why not embrace them and try and get their point of view around the table? And also for me, so I can learn. You know, the thing I found in my previous job, when you sort of get to the top of the food chain, is you find that you're always right. You know, you're not. You know, you're surrounded by people who make you feel like you're always right. And I suddenly wanted to be in an environment where I wasn't always right. Well, secretly, I always do want to be right, but you know, it's a different thing. But where I felt that we could work with clients where we could get further upstream. And by that I mean, instead of just working with a client where they said we need a print campaign, or we need a TV ad, or we need something developed for the summer, we can actually get into the essence of their business and talk about their business needs and their challenges and really understand what their objectives were. So are their objectives to change the category? Are their objectives to take their company public in 5 years? Is their objective to make the founder famous? You suddenly find yourself getting into the nuances and the essences of the company a lot earlier. And being your own place, suddenly I felt that I had the courage to sort of to go into meetings with more chance of being right. That doesn't necessarily mean we're always right. And luck has a lot to do with it as well. I've always found that it's quite timely now. The industry has changed drastically around the world, where a lot of brands, you don't have to necessarily be the biggest brand in the category or the number 2 brand. The number 2 brand doesn't necessarily have to be the challenger brand. Number 3, 4, 5 and 6 are also challenger brands. But also at the same time, a lot of the bigger brands don't want to just go through this cookie cutter approach to bond with their consumers. So, which is why our client list, and we're very fortunate today, we'll be 2 years in, are we in April now? Our client list is as diverse as our staff, you know, from the sort of blue chip of Microsoft, Disney, Coke, and then all the way down to sort of some feistier, some brands we'll also show you as well. I'll give you a mixing. So we had an auspicious launch. The very first thing that we did was for a fashion label. Juna, hopefully you changed the discs. Hopefully, thank you. The very first thing we did was for a fashion label called Echo. And Echo is, I think it's now it's the largest youth brand in America, apparel brand. And the founder is a 35-year-old guy, Mark Echo. And he's in a really interesting dilemma because he operates in a category where it has nothing to do with quality. That's not to say his product isn't good. He operates in a category where it's basically about street credibility. You know, it's worn by 17-year-old suburban kids who all want to be gritty urban kids. And so the challenge for us was, the original conversation started around, let's do some TV and print, but then we had to investigate who his audience really is. And his audience is these 17-year-old kids who are not watching TV, who are not reading magazines, who are spending all their time on the internet, online. And at the same time, we wanted to create something that just, as we said, I put together a case study. It was all about creating a pop culture moment. Something that would look like it was sort of standing up to the establishment, because that's about street credibility. The last caveat I'll give you is, to understand what Echo is you have to understand the founder. He started his business and who he is as a graffiti artist. Now, I'm not condoning graffiti, but that's who he is as a person, and all the designs and everything he did have come from that. So we decided to create something, and the more you understand graffiti culture, all the respect in graffiti culture comes from what they call the heavenly site. The heavenly site is the more obscure and harder to get to that someone can put some graffiti, the more respect you get within a graffiti culture. As I said, this is too much information for anyone to know, but it's all relevant. So we decided to spray graffiti on Air Force One, which is a modest challenge. And as I was told in the first meeting with lawyers, you know you're possibly breaking the Patriot Act here. And as an ignorant creative Australian, I was like, well, it's all debatable, isn't it? I did have a little bit of paranoia that I might have opened the shortest lived agency in American history, because I thought that literally I might actually be relocated to somewhere else quickly. But this is the case study that talks about what and how we did it. So if we can play the first thing, please.
Let's break into Andrews Air Force Base and deface the president's plane, Air Force One. That's what a video circulating online seems to suggest.
No, you didn't hear that incorrectly. There is a video making its way around the web right now that appears to show two people spray painting Air Force One.
Our favorite photo or piece of video of the day. This one, the shot tonight, is really making the rounds on the internet. It's a home video. It shows a graffiti artist named Mark Echo on a covert operation, jumping an airport fence and then spray painting the side of Air Force One.
Air Force One has to be the most secure airplane in the history of planet Earth, which is why this video has been rocking the internet. That is what looks like Air Force One. There's the security, and that's what looks like two people scaling a fence at Andrews Air Force Base. Then they get to the engine. That says still free. Those guys tagged Air Force One, which is where our story really begins.
My name is Mark Echo. I am the founder of Echo Unlimited, which is a clothing company that is known for the rhinoceros logo, and we've grown that t-shirt company that I started from my parents' garage.
Echo is a very successful businessman whose Mark Echo Enterprises had more than $1 billion in sales last year.
And we're looking at the conventional medium of advertising, the conventional buying on TV, conventional print, all that stuff. It occurred to us that, it was just white noise. We wanted to do something that exploited the viral tendencies of the internet, the nature of this stunt in a cool way, the moment we're living in right now, and really create a potential pop culture moment for us to all kind of look back on and be nostalgic about.
Echo, graffiti artist pulled off an internet hoax that even got the attention of the White House.
Eyewitness News.
This comes just now from WNBC. Someone sprayed graffiti on President Bush's jet on the president's plane.
What were these guys doing to Air Force One?
Organized by designer and entrepreneur Mark Echo.
Graffiti. We also talked to the Pentagon about the video today,
And it looked so authentic, in fact. The Air Force actually checked to see whether the plane had been vandalized.
People immediately want to pigeonhole you. And I would never suggest doing that for any other client, ever. I mean, you know, but a lot of people came to us straight away on the back of that and said, can you do us this edgy viral video? Or some people even said, can you do us a hoax? Can you do it? And I'm like, no, that was sort of a one-off appropriate for that brand. And on the back of that, he launched 500 more stores, a graffiti video game that went platinum. And now, you know, that he's sort of been thrust as this spokesperson for the industry, we're actually working on a TV show for him now, sort of the gritty Donald Trump as such. But again, it's sort of really understanding what the essence of the brand was. That was about building his brand, but also about building him as a personality. But a very interesting way to kick off. The next thing is very, very different. And again, it shows how, you know, creativity, it's about being honest with yourself and applying what's the smartest thing and the best way of doing something. And I've always, you know, as I said, I love advertising so much, I love creative people, and I really believe that we have so much more to offer than just, you know, print ads and TV ads and radio ads and digital ads. You know, we're creative thinkers and we really understand business, and we can come up with ideas, and ideas are a currency. You know, they're not linear, they're not necessarily rational, they don't, you know, necessarily appear on the spreadsheet, but ideas make things happen, and ideas create business, create brands. And this was something that personally for me has meant a lot. I didn't tell you in my setup about how, you know, my background, but actually my crazy Danish mother is a huge environmental activist, huge. And one of the biggest issues facing the world today, you know, obviously we all talk about climate change, which is incredible and very important, but the more daunting issue facing the world is the water issue. There's the water discrepancy between those who have water and those who don't have water is so extreme that unless we do something about that, the whole climate change thing we won't even get around to. So, working with UNICEF, you know, they wanted us to raise awareness for them, you know, because UNICEF does a huge amount of work raising money for kids in Africa and around the world that don't have access to clean water. And we thought, instead of just doing a print campaign to try and ask people to put their hand in their pocket, we thought, why don't we try and create one of the world's biggest brands out of nothing, but out of something that already exists. Something that already exists that we all take for granted, and we can do it in an environment that hopefully changes the world. So this is a case study for that. So I'll play this, please.
inaccessible water is the second largest killer of children around the world. We're talking 5-6 million children a year.
I think 6,000 children a day worldwide die from not having clean, safe drinking water.
$1 would buy you 40 liters of water. A child needs between 1 and 2 liters a day to survive, so either 40 children will live one more day from that dollar, or one child will live 40 more days from that dollar.
This is ABC 13.
My 9 News, New York 1.
It's Thursday, March 27th.
Today is World Water Day.
And UNICEF is asking New Yorkers to remember those around the world without clean water.
More than 1 billion people worldwide don't have access to clean water.
Sarah Jessica Barker was in NYC to support the UNICEF TAP project.
UNICEF's TAP project is at nearly 300 restaurants in New York City.
$1 for tap water starting tomorrow.
The money will go to UNICEF programs which provide safe drinking water for children around the world.
Project for UNICEF.
Thank you. Actually, 2 weeks ago, it was the US rollout, and what's amazing about that is just the scale and momentum of that idea. And we talk internally. The only real mantra that I use now internally is momentum. Our responsibility is to create positive brand momentum for a client, and that might be a client that spends $100 million in media, or that might be a client that spends $1 million in media. But it's our job is to create ideas that create their own momentum, so that the brand connection doesn't necessarily stop when the spending stops. And what's amazing about TAP is, I mean, you know, obviously I feel incredible. As my mother said, the activist said, finally you've done something good. But what's amazing, I mean, and that idea is far bigger than us now as an agency. I mean, really what I did for this year is I picked up the phone and called all my favourite agencies in America and said, can you own this for your city? And it might be the first time ever that competing agencies have actually worked on the same brief at the same time. The only thing that mandatory was the logo, the look, and the collection, because all 100% of the money goes to UNICEF. So White and Kennedy owns it for Portland now, and Goodby Silverstein owns it for San Francisco, and Child Day owns it for LA. So it's all over the country, and all these agencies in our industry has come together, which is, I mean, amazing, wonderful. And obviously next year we're going to roll it out internationally. So hopefully some people here can help. But as I said, it's just a really simple idea. And we did lots of advertising. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of press ads and TV ads now for this year, and all those are great elements, but we didn't start with that. Our thinking didn't just start with, what's a great TV ad? What's a really clever, it started with what's an idea that will make a difference, knowing that advertising will then contribute to that. And, and each element of the advertising is still crucial, it has to be treated with respect and craft. But anyway, so that was... Now, just to show that we're not worthier than anybody else, we're still a shallow agency. I'm going to take you through again a different idea, and this is for a beer client, and it's a beer client that we have in America, and it's an import beer into America, and as with most import brands in lots of categories, particularly from other countries, they always think that the country they're importing their product into is more interested in their country than they are. I mean, as interested in their country as they are. So this is the #1 beer in New Zealand. It's called Steinlager. It sounds German, but it's Kiwi beer. And launching into the States. And this is a market where, Budweiser spends upward of 700 million on advertising a year. So, they don't have those sort of budgets. But they came to us and they said, well, just tell everyone about Steinlager. It's from New Zealand. People will love it. I'm like, I'm from Australia and I don't even know New Zealand. Well, I do, but I have to say that to the soul, just to make a point. And just from that, we thought, well, how can we create something that gets their consumer interested in A, Steinlager as a brand, but B, in New Zealand, and do it in a tone that's sort of irreverent and fun. It has that spirit of the sort of brand you want to do. And what came from just a housekeeping question in the meeting, I said to one of the clients, because they were all over from New Zealand in the meeting in New York, I said, who will we report to daily? Who's our day-to-day contact? And they said, well, Nick, the marketing director, is going to move here to oversee the launch. Now, I don't know how well you know New Zealand. New Zealand's a very small country, and it has a population of 3 or 4 million people. And so our idea came from that. And the idea was, in a country that small, can they afford to send one of their best and brightest to another country? Will their brain trust be drained if they send one person out? So we created a real competition, and you have to understand this is real, a real competition where a Steinlager drinker would win Nick's life in New Zealand. He would win his job at Steinlager, his girlfriend, his parents, his house, his cars, his mates, his dog. So we created a real competition where someone could actually win his life for 6 months. And there was many elements, but that was the essence. So I'll just show the next film, this case study, please.
Very proud of Nikki. We always knew he'd do great things in life.
I'm Pete. I'm Pete. I'm Pete, CEO of Steinlager Breweries in beautiful New Zealand. Hi. My ass! What? Just get out. I'm just trying to get a job done. What are you doing? And we're so damn proud of Steinlager, we think it's time we exported it to everyone in America. Yeah. Now to do this,
we're going to send one of our top employees over to the States. Soon young Nick here will be moving to America. Now that we're sending Nick to America, now while he's gone, an American, possibly you, will be taking over Nick's life here in New Zealand. And to sweeten the deal, not only will we give you Nick's job, we're going to throw in his whole life here in NZ. His apartment, his clothes, his parents, maybe even his girlfriend Emma.
Hey, I'm not some prize you can give away.
To our new son, get the key to the old one.
Sweet ass.
Everybody be happy, as happy as you and me. 'Cause I know. Come on, baby, let me tell ya all the things I wanna say. Come on, baby, let me tell ya all the things I wanna say. Everybody's gonna be happy, which means you and me, my love. Everybody's gonna be happy, which means you and me, my love. I know, man, when I see you walking down the street, well, it makes me happy to see you walking. It makes my life complete. 'Cause I know. Come on, baby, let me tell ya all the things I wanna say. Come on, baby, let me tell ya all the things I wanna say. Everybody's gonna be happy, which means you and me, my love. Everybody's gonna be happy, which means you and me, my love. I know, and I know that you and me, and I know that you and me feel happy, happy after we can be. 'Cause I know. Come on, baby, let me tell ya all the things I wanna say. Come on, baby, let me tell ya all the things I wanna say. Everybody's gonna be happy.
Could be doing the wheelbarrows.
Racing yourself like that, he's behind.
Make it your best.
But it was in this bad-infested darkness that Nick was conceived.
No, we're not mentioning that.
We've got Steinhardt beer, we've got beautiful New Zealand, we've got the movies. That's the concept right there. The whole concept.
That's brilliant. A woman.
Someone's liven up this shithole.
That's disgusting.
The universe will take care of you.
This could work, actually.
Get the telly bird, get it on camera.
I'm sorry. Can you imagine the rules they put out? It was silly, wasn't it?
Okay, we can stop at this. Sorry. Anyway, forgive me. I apologise for some of the language in that. But again, it was creating something, and for them, not only the consumer bought into it huge stuff, but also the distributors, and they went from having zero presence in America to having the biggest import presence now on the East Coast. So it wasn't just creative; it really worked well and set a tone for them. As I said again, apologies for some of the language. I think the thing is, I'm deliberately picking some of the things that are just extreme in the nature. We just like to show some of our thinking. The next one actually came from, because we did TAP, the Department of Education came to us and asked us to probably do a brief that might be the most intimidating brief I've ever got. And they said, can we brand achievement in America and in the public school system? Now, I think there isn't anybody that wouldn't agree that education is the backbone of any society. And America has some huge issues when it comes to public education. So I'm not talking the private schools and the wealthy schools, but public education, and particularly in New York City, where there's 1 million students in the public education system, and really the issues they face is kids just don't turn up to school. They don't turn up to school, or they don't take it seriously. There's lots of issues going on there, you know, broken homes, and you know, getting kids to want to participate in school is an incredibly tough task. And in the past, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars has been spent over the last decades